Hello and welcome to today's episode where we mess up a lot of things. And yeah, I managed to break it. It is no longer being a tensioner. We finally got it out. Unfortunately, there is still another issue regarding this piece. This cross member or support piece mounts to the gearbox side and holds the exhaust in place. The rubber mountings were completely done and it was just loose. That was why the exhaust was hanging so low and probably also contributed to the exhaust breaking. But I don't have these pieces, so I'll have to order them. But in the meantime, I'm just not gonna mount this piece and then just worry about it at a later time. I have some new hardware to connect the downpipe to the cat, but yeah, we're just gonna mount the exhaust and then I'm gonna do this off camera, unfortunately. Just to show you, gonna power it up. Now that the exhaust is back in place, I have to show you something. Unfortunately, after I've heard the squeaking noise in the video, I decided to do some diagnostic off camera. Unfortunately, I broke something and I already had to order it because without that we cannot drive, or I cannot even let the car run for longer. Yeah, I messed up. The M51 engine probably has the dumbest tensioner design I've ever seen, and yeah, I managed to break it. It is no longer being a tensioner. It broke into two pieces and is now pretty much useless. The tensioner is a bit weirdly placed in between a coolant pipe and an EGR pipe, so there's not really any way you can get to it. And the only way you can compress it is by having a bar, and you have to imagine it like this. It's attached to this and you have to pry upwards on the tensioner itself to decompress it, or to compress it. And the mistake I made was I took this bar and I jammed it in between, and I didn't push on the tensioner itself, I pushed on like the tensioner arm, and that stuff is brittle cast aluminium, and because of the shear force it snapped in half. So if you're going to work on the tensioner from the belt drive on an M51, make sure that you're only touching the tensioner itself, because if you do it like I did, you will inevitably snap the tensioner arm. This part is still available at BMW with this part number. However, it costs 60 bucks, which might not seem like a lot, but stuff adds up, you know what I mean. I already placed an order and a new tensioner itself, because this is, even if you don't believe me, the reason why the squeaking noise was there, because the dummy that I am, I cleaned it in the ultrasonic cleaner, and apparently that's bad for hydraulic stuff, and I didn't know that, so I properly destroyed it. It's old and crusty anyways, so it doesn't hurt to get it renewed. What we're also going to do in this episode is replace these seals, and I think that maybe the reason why the car isn't starting well and isn't idling really is maybe the injection pump timing is off by a bit, and so I've bought a professional fixation tool, and now we don't have to do it with zip ties and carton like in one of the prior episodes. Now that I've shown you all the carnage, we can continue with the repairs. Let's start by removing the intake manifold for the 500th time. I've already done this on video. I'm going to link the video right here, and if you want to check out the details of setting the injection pump on M51s, just check that video out. Now I'm just going to fly through, because I've already done that. I'm just going to do it with better material. First, I'm going to loosen the center nut. Don't forget to take out the copper crush washer. This is the locking nut that I was missing last time, and it screws into the pump, and then you can twist this, and then you can squeeze the dial gauge with this part by turning it, and it locks it in place. Last time I had to do this with zip ties and carton, so I'm sorry if this isn't really visible, but like I said, you can check the other video and there it is easier to understand, but this with the locking nut is the correct way to do it. I just noticed why I always misadjusted the pump. Yeah, I made a big mistake. Every time I was adjusting the pump, I was just loosening the top two nuts. There is a bottom nut right there. Unfortunately, I never loosened it, because even though I knew this engine has 3 securing nuts from the TRS manual, I never found it. And that explains why the pump has been misadjusted this whole time. Yeah, we need to do it once more and then hopefully everything works out well. Now I've prepped everything to readjust. The injection pump dial gauge is back inside. Crankshaft blocking tool is installed in the bell housing. My 22mm socket is on the crank to turn it. The camshaft is set to 60 degrees before top dead center on cylinder number 1. And now we can start. Another thing I've been doing wrong with setting the injection pump is I just looked at the BMW TRS manual again and I noticed that they explicitly say that the coolant temperature has to be above 20 degrees C. This is, I believe, because of the cold start advanced solenoid not allowing the pump to advance then. And if you set it with the coolant being under 20, I think the pump is set to advance and then your reading is slightly off, which explains the faults I've been getting. Turns out that even if you do your research and you think you did everything right, there is still a big possibility you didn't, and I just have to stand up to my faults and then just learn from it for the future. So I'm gonna set the car outside, let it warm up, and then I'm gonna do it again. Now that the car is warmed up to above 20 degrees C and the battery is disconnected, we can do the whole procedure again. I've done it so many times and shown so many times. I'm just gonna rush through and then we're good. Honestly, I'm a bit at loss of words right now. The car starts, but it takes a while still, and no matter how I turn it or how I do, I can only get from 0 lift to 0.30 mil lift on the injection pump reading. Either my dial gauge is fucked because I just think, well, from full lock to full lock it is 0.3 mils and it's supposed to be 0.9, so there's 0.6 missing. And the car starts, it revs all the way. I have set it to 0.09 mils lift on the dial gauge at TDC and top dead center, and in my opinion, if it's supposed to be 0.9 and I have 0.009, it shouldn't even start. So I think the dial gauge reading is just fucked. But I'm honestly confused because I have all the workshop manuals, I've scattered information from all the forums, and still, there is still something off. Like, right now, I followed the BMW TRS manual to the T, and everything is how they say it's supposed to be, except for the lift. But the lift, we set it on my old dial gauge to 0.9 plus minus 003, and we know that the chain is in order. We know that when the piston is at TDC, the top part of the valve train or the camshaft is synced because we renewed the timing chain, and I had one of these injection pump wheels where there is no 4 and 6 for 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder, but just one marking for the M51. And I've managed to do everything, but the car is still not cooperating. So if you know what could be my issue, please help me out in the comments because I'm a bit lost. Yeah, what am I supposed to say? I've just done some more research and I don't even know if that's possible, but it seems to be an issue that has been discovered on Land Rover models with the same engine. And apparently they have had cases where the timing sprocket jumped and then they can't get enough lift on the injection pump. I can't get enough lift on my injection pump. I only set it to 0.09 mils, and yeah, I can't get enough lift on my injection pump, and I really don't know why or how, but they think it is because the bottom sprocket on the crankshaft to the timing chain jumped a tooth on the actual chain itself. I don't know, I'm honestly just confused. This is by far the weirdest engine, or the engine with the most amount of issues I've ever had to work on. And it is really weird because even though the chain is new, when I line up the crankshaft at the back with the bell housing blocker and then the cam locker, it is pretty close. The chain on top right here is, I'm just gonna say, a few mils, like 3 mils or 4 mils on top to the intake side, and I don't know if the chain has stretched that much in the few running minutes that I've had, but maybe that's just the initial stretch of the chain and it is normal. I don't know. Please tell me in the comments what you think it is, because I'm just confused right now and I don't really know how to continue. At least my new belt tensioner and tensioner arm have arrived, so we can install that in the meantime. So what happens now? First of all, thanks for watching. I'm still a bit confused and I don't know what to do. I'm just gonna wait for feedback, go on a few forums and reread all the things I've already read, because I've pretty much stumbled across every forum there is. Yeah, if you have an idea, just write it down in the comments. Probably gonna help tremendously. Yeah, see ya!